Not too long ago, we had Alan on the show, and his co-host, his co-CEO, the other badass on Next Level University is Kevin Palmieri. And so now we have to have him on, right? Doesn't that make sense, everybody? Learn his background and put it all together for us. So without further ado, Kevin, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, and like everything else, we're going to dive into it with some hot and heavy questions.
That is the goal. Number one, I appreciate you having me. Number two, I hopefully will be more badass than Alan. That is for sure. And my backstory. I'm someone who was raised by my mom and my grandmother, didn't go to college, didn't have any expectations of creating any level of success, fulfillment, or impact in the world. And now I have the opportunity to host a podcast 7 times a week. And now I'm a professional, quote unquote, podcaster. And this is what I get to do for a living. I get to help people for a living, which was quite literally a dream for me at the beginning of this.
You guys aren't in competition with each other at all, are you?
Never would we be, zero. Ever. Nope.
No, never.
Nope. I'm against it.
Fully against it. And by the way, everyone listening, I don't like the East Coast. So let's not put it too much on him that we don't like the East Coast as much. No, but seriously. Obviously, they've heard Alan's story. If they haven't, it'll be in the description. They can go find his. But what brought you to the place of where you wanted to help others, right? Because that is not usually, there's always something that happens that you want to help others. You're not born out of the womb and like, best life ever, let's go help a bunch of people.
Yeah.
What had happened in your life to get you on this trajectory?
I think one of the simplest, earliest things is I grew up without a dad. And I always felt like other families were trying to adopt me and give me a normal childhood experience. It was always super weird for me, Stoy. Inviting me over for dinner and, hey, do you want to come on vacation? And eventually it got to the point where I remember thinking, oh my goodness, you think I'm defective. So you want to make sure that I don't continue that defective life or that defective behavior. That was a really big one for me. Then I didn't go to college and everybody I knew did. So I felt like I was a loser. And everybody else was positioning themselves for successful futures. And I was going to get left behind, and I was never going to be financially successful. I was never going to be desired for, and I was just never really going to have any impact. Then I had the opportunity to actually make money. I got a good job, and I got lucky, and I ended up making 6 figures. And it was like, oh my goodness, I am going to be financially successful. This is amazing. Then I realized that didn't make me fulfilled. So I made 6 figures. I opened my final pay stub of the year. And I remember expecting to have a ton of confidence, a ton of self-worth, getting rid of all my limiting beliefs, loving myself. And none of that happened. I realized in that moment that for most of my life, I had lived unconsciously. The opposite of unconscious is hyperconscious. So shortly thereafter, I started a podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast. So that really was the inception for me. Was I've grown up most of my life expecting not to be successful. Now, if you look at me from the outside looking in, you would have to assume I'm extremely successful. But I'm actually more unhappy now than I've ever been. There has to be something to this. And how many other people are going to fall for this trap and experience this? Maybe I can use my story to help other people raise their awareness to who they are, what's valuable to them, and I can help them learn about themselves and change their lives. Then the following year, I ended up sitting on the edge of a bed contemplating suicide because I was so miserable still doing this job when I felt like I had a purpose and a mission and something greater than myself. Then I left the job, and then it was like, we're going to go all in on this. And if I could survive, if I could just survive long enough to make this any level of profitable, even sustainable, I would be the happiest, most fulfilled person on the planet. Because I get to talk about cool stuff every day, and I get to facilitate the opportunity for change, and I get to raise people's awareness. So it was really, there was a bunch of different checkpoints along the way that I always felt alone. And honestly, there are still times where I feel alone. I don't really know anybody else doing things the exact way we're doing them, really. And everybody assumes it's one way. And then when I say it's like, it's not what you think it is, right? Like I grind my face off. It's not like we record an episode and then I get millions of dollars. Like that ain't it. So even today, I think there's still some resemblance of feeling like an outsider when you don't feel understood, if I'm being honest.
And I don't think that ever goes away. A very similar background, by the way. My father wasn't around. I mean, we can hit upon that more, but I think what people don't understand, and when I've interviewed a ton of people and what I do in my actual practice, talking about money and wealth, is not every person has their shit together. Most people do not have their shit together, listeners. They don't. They just don't. Those that you might seem like they do are the ones that usually don't the most.
Yeah.
And when you had alluded to, you still go through those things. I want everyone to know we still have those issues. Just now, when you've come through it, you can recognize those, maybe go to the gym, maybe something. You're able to stop the situation from spiraling. When you don't have those tools, you've never been through that experience. You just don't have those. And that's why you have your podcast. That's why we have our podcast. That's why we have all this content, is to hopefully trigger something to help you through that situation.
Can I add real quick?
Yeah.
My goal is always to be authentic, transparent, honest, even if it makes me look bad, vulnerable. I want to be vulnerable. Yeah. I had a minute. This is no BS. Before this podcast where I was like, I don't know if I even belong here. We're talking about wealth. I don't know. Alan's the wealth guy. You already had the guy from NLU to talk about wealth. What are you doing? Do you know who I am? Do you know that I don't know anything? I had that before, and you come off as a very confident, competent human. And I was genuinely intimidated by that. So I'm not going to be able to hang in this conversation. That still happens. I've done 2,900 episodes.
Just a couple, though. That's just
a couple.
A few.
Like, you'd imagine at some point that would just go away. Kev, you're going to be fine. You'll be okay. Worst case scenario, it doesn't hit. But that's still something that I work through. I won't say on a daily basis, but on a weekly basis for sure.
Absolutely. And I think a big part, hearing your story in the background of your story, and I always allude to that these two words, there's rich and there's wealthy. And one has to do with money and the other one really doesn't as much. I believe in your transition, you were rich. I'm not saying you were a billionaire or anything, but you were making six figures. You could buy what you want. You could live life how you wanted. You were rich at some point, and you were not fulfilled. You were not joyous. You were not happy, and you weren't giving back to others, which is wealthy. And so do you think with that definition, like that's how you were? You're like, oh, it's about money. Once I get the money, oh, everything's going to be great. And then you got it and you were like, this still sucks. And then now you've transitioned to more wealthy. Can you dive into a little that first?
Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on. I assumed that money, external things fixed internal voids. So when I was right before all of this happened in my story, when I was 25, my girlfriend was a model. I had competed in and won a bodybuilding show. So I was quite literally, you could see every vein in my body. I was jacked. High paying job, new apartment, sports car, every external thing. I had them all. I had all of them. But that didn't do anything internally. So I think that money, specifically, if we're talking about like the energy, the currency of money, it creates opportunities and options and choices. But it's not going to create internal change. It's not going to create fulfillment. It's not going to create joy. Yeah, there'll be momentary bouts of happiness along the way, but I assumed that was everything. Now, wealth to me is an abundance of everything, an abundance of energy, an abundance of knowledge, an abundance of love, an abundance of opportunity, an abundance of awareness. That is what wealth means. Yeah, that's what wealth means to me. It means abundance that you can pass out. That's really, if I have an abundance of energy, I can give Stoy some. Here's some. Here, you can have this. Let me bring it. If I have an abundance of knowledge, I can write a book, and a bunch of people can profit from that book. Yes, I would say it's the ability to just give out all the abundance that you have.
See, I just got the chills. You said you're not the money guy of the conversation. Yes, you are. That's the game. Money is a tool. Money is a tool for all of the things to help you live more abundantly and give more, right? But you can't give more energy. Money doesn't buy energy at all. And I think that's a really good place to speak on that. All right. So you decided to, hey, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to start a podcast. Podcasting is a very easy and quick way to make a lot of money.
Yes.
There's minimal work. You just talk on here and it's all done. Talk us through that mindset of, hey, I'm going to do a podcast and I'm leaving a high paying job. what needs to happen, because it's a business, right? All business owners, podcasting is a business in itself. So talk us through that transition and why, first of all, and second of all, what's that grind like?
Yeah, the transition was more out of necessity than desire. When you're sitting there on the edge of a bed contemplating suicide, there's really nowhere else to go. There's two ways. There's either I go through with this and that's it, or I try to take another path. I reached out to Alan. I don't know if he told you, but I reached out to Alan and I explained to him what was going on. And he said, Kev, over the last couple of years, your awareness has changed a ton, but your environments have remained the same. I think it's time for you to change your environment. So a few months after that, I went all in with him. I already knew I had somebody who was a potential business partner, who's extremely intelligent. Hopefully the audience took that away, right? I'm sure he added some value. Master's in business, electrical and computer engineer. Like, we're going to be fine. He's the strategy. It wasn't for money. I didn't know it was going to be a business. I just knew that it fulfilled me and I was passionate about it. And honestly, that was enough for me. I was naive, but positively naive. I was like, I don't know if you told me what it was going to take now and I had the opportunity to go back and do it again, I would, but I would definitely have some hesitation for sure. So first 2 years, I'm living off of credit cards. I had access to $35,000 in credit, and I think I had $10,000 cash when I left my job. First couple of years, I'm just living off of that, and Alan and I are working on our character. There's no business plan, there's no offers, there's no products, there's no services, there's no business bank account. None of that exists. We didn't have that till 2019, I don't think. We just learned that the majority of our audience is emotionally driven women. We are two bodybuilding bros. We have some work to do on our characters if we're going to be able to add value into these humans' lives. So that was the first couple years. Then I had a conversation with Alan and I said, brother, I'm running out of money. At this point, I'm $30,000 in credit card debt. My car is breaking down and I can't get it fixed. I can't afford stuff. I'm running out of money. And he said, I think you should start coaching for free. And I said, I don't know if you missed like that last part. I need to start making money, brother. Like, I do enough stuff for free. And he said, Kev, you've never coached. You need to build demand. And honestly, you need to build belief. So I reached out to 5 people who I knew listened to the podcast. And I said, hey, I'm interested in doing some beta coaching, self-improvement, right? Self-awareness, self-improvement, peak performance. Is that something you're interested in? It's totally free. I will coach you for free it was either a month or 2 months, every week. Is that something you're interested in? Everybody said yes. So I did it for free for whatever the allotted term was. And at the end, I said, I'm not going to be able to do this for free anymore because business is not growing really, but I'm doing more. Right. What do you think of $50 a week? And everybody said yes. So I went from $0 to making $250 a week, which was life-changing money for me at that point. And then that became the way that we tried to start the monetization process. And when I tell you this is the hardest thing I've ever done by far, I still work 70 hours a week. I work 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then usually 8 to 10 hours on Saturday. Alan is working probably 85 hours a week. So between the two of us, it's very hard to compete with 2 people that are working over full time. I have traded in friendships. I've traded in relationships. I don't go to bachelor parties. I don't do a lot of stuff. I'm in this office pretty much every day for 12 hours a day. And it is brutal. Yeah, it's one of the hardest things ever. 1,780 episodes without missing. That's a lot. It takes a lot out of you. I don't know if I could eloquently express the grind. It's most likely more than someone would guess because it's definitely way more than I would have guessed.
Oh, absolutely. But the thing is, it's all a journey. All you spoke about is a journey. And you guys are still knee deep in that journey, mainly because our journey doesn't end until we are dead. But listeners need to understand that whatever path you are on, it is a journey. And you just need to keep going forward and trying these things. Because if you don't, then that's when things go awry. Both emotionally, physically, all of them, physically, all of those go awry from that perspective. So you've built this business, you're grinding your ass away, and everyone's going to be like, I don't want that life. I don't want to have to work 70, 80 hours a week. I don't want to do all of these things. In your coaching and in your university, what do you say to those people, the ones that don't want to do that, but they just want a nice, I don't want to say easy, but more simple life.
I say make sure you set your goals accordingly. I'm okay with that. I'm never going to be I won't say I'm never, because I'm sure I probably was in the beginning. I probably thought I had to be like, yeah, grind your face off. I don't care what people's goals are anymore. I now care for the lifestyle that you're okay with living while you pursue them. That really would have helped me in the beginning. Like, I wanted to be a full-time podcaster. I didn't really know what that meant. But now that I know what the day-to-day is like, I can hopefully more honestly communicate the journey to other people. So when someone says, well, I don't want to do that, I would say there's different ways you can do it. But based on the level of impact you're trying to have in the world, because impact is what dictates currency and wealth and income and richness, right? For lack of better phrasing, you're really going to have to put yourself out there for the next 5 years. Stoy, I've literally told people, I don't think you should try to do what you think you're desiring to do. Because what you value as a human is not in alignment with the process that it's going to take for you to get to where you want to get to. You want to get your kids off the bus every day? Yes. You want to be at all your kids' recitals and rehearsals? Yes. You want to make sure you eat dinner with your family every night? Yes. Doing what I do probably isn't for you. I'm not having kids for that reason. I've decided against it. I'm not going to have children. Eventually, maybe my wife and I will adopt, but that's further down the line when things are more financially, it's different. But that's a conscious decision that I am not having children because I know what this journey is going to take. So all I say is just make sure that your goals and the level of consistency, commitment, effort, focus, and sacrifice is in alignment, because it's up to you. I don't think the reason we stop our goals is because we get halfway and say, that goal doesn't really inspire me anymore. I think it's because we get halfway and realize, wow, this journey is way different than I expected. The goal is the same. The journey is what tricks us and trips us up. So yeah, when you're setting your goal, also try to have an honest conversation with yourself about, are you okay living that lifestyle for the delta between where you are and where you're trying to get to?
That's really fundamentally the difference between, go back to what the Olympics are right now, although this will come out well past the Olympics, between Olympians and non-Olympians from an athletic standpoint. The dedication and time you have to do in your journey takes up a lot of those things that you need to be willing to give up. Yeah. Can you have kids? Yeah, absolutely. You can do all of those things, but you can't do them all at the same time.
Right.
Whether that is going to weddings, whether that is going to all your kids' sports stuff. You have to be able to understand what that journey is. And ultimately, that journey is a grind, and it does suck. But you have to embrace that part of it. As a former athlete myself, in a lot of ones that retire and go through it, it's the fact that we train in football, at least, for 10 months nonstop to play 4 months worth of games for 11 opportunities at a minimum in college. That's a lot of journey and grind for a very minimal output. And it's not as enjoyable as you think. But if you can take that grind and that journey and make it enjoyable, make it fit and align with what you're doing and how you want to live your life, then all of a sudden it doesn't feel like you're on this journey as much. It doesn't feel like you're on that grind. I would assume you don't feel like you're on that grind every day. Some days you'll get worn out, but it doesn't feel like that because it's who you are, what you're doing, what you're about. And I believe a lot of businesses fail. A lot of people fail in what they're doing because they do not align those things. They try to either keep up with the Joneses. They try to see someone successful on YouTube, Instagram, or whatever, and are like, I want to be that. No, wrong. You don't want to be that. You want to be something that you are. We don't know what that looks like because we're all different. We all have different paths. How do you get people to start to transition from, I want to be, you know what? I want to be Kevin because he's so successful. He's been on 6,000 episodes or whatever. I want to be him. That's really what I want to be. But when you speak to them, their passions aligned with XYZ, something else.
That the first thing I do is I sit down with someone and say, what are your core values? What are your core beliefs? And what are your core aspirations? And how many of those clash together? If your core aspirations are, whatever it is, to have ultimate time freedom, my thing ain't your thing. Most likely, the way I'm doing it, at least, is not. We do an episode every day. Like, there's never going to be full time freedom. So I'll sit down with somebody and I want to talk about what do you really deeply value in life that you think if you had to give up would create an unsuccessful, unfulfilling, unaligned, misaligned life. I always start there. And then it almost becomes, with that new information, I want to watch you prove to yourself that you still want to take the same journey. Based on the fact that maybe now for the first time ever, you're understanding, oh my goodness, my ambition is secondary to my family life. Cool. Awesome. Good for you. I'm so glad you figured that out now and not 6 years into your journey. I had a client who started a podcast. And I said, what are we doing? What do you want to do? Why do you want to do this? He said, I want to be Gary Vee, man. And I was like, oh, okay. I said, look, I don't know what it's going to be, what it's like to be Gary Vee. No clue. I can imagine it's probably worse than I think in some ways, but better than I think in others. I said, based on what I know about you, you want the results that come with that, and you want the convenient opportunities that come with that. I don't think that's what you want to dedicate your life to. So we had a very honest conversation. And he got rid of the podcast because he realized that, yeah, it sounds really good and it sounds really sexy. And yeah, it looks cool what you and Alan get to do every day. And I said, I know it does. It's supposed to. I mean, it's supposed to look cool, right? It's a business. It's a brand. I don't want people to know that if you're going to chase your dreams, it's going to be harder than you think. I do, honestly. I do want people to know that. But I don't want to look miserable all the time because I'm not. But it is challenging. So I think, yeah, that's the answer is I just want to help somebody raise their awareness to what do you really value as a human being? Because when you realize what you value as a human, you also realize the journey has to cross certain checkpoints for you to stay fulfilled along the way. But a lot of us don't have that self-awareness yet. And we think that money will fix. It's when I get the money. No. Unless money is like the thing for you, that's my deep belief. Money is everything. That's all I value. And my ambition is to have all the money in the world. I don't know. Maybe for you, that's the journey. But I feel like there's some depth to that maybe we haven't got to yet.
Oh, for sure. So hot topic time. You had
Please.
talked about like majority or a lot of your listeners are women, right? My business is designed around minority in business, female business owners, right? That's just who I attract. It's what we talk to. Why do you think that is for you guys, the majority of your listeners, or a predominantly early on majority of your listeners?
I think it is, we have a common core wound. So Alan and I had very low self-worth at the beginning of this. I think we attracted a lot of people who had self-worth issues. So I think that was part one. And part two, it was two jacked guys having deep, vulnerable conversations about stuff that I don't think a lot of other men wanted to talk about. And the ultimate goal has always been to do it with the least amount of ego possible. When I listen to old episodes, I can sense that I'm insecure, so I'm egoing up, that I just needed to protect myself. But we're very warm and we're very welcoming and we're very empathetic. We try to see things from different perspectives, even if we haven't lived them. So I think there's one arena where it's hustle culture, grind your face off, work 24/7, screw your family, don't hang out, don't get R&R, doesn't matter. You only have one life. Do you want to be successful or do you want to be a failure, you loser? There's one end. And then the opposite end of that is just only do really what you feel like doing. And then if you're supposed to attract success, it'll come to you. We're in the middle. So I think we speak to an audience that has tried to do nothing, that didn't get results, and who has tried to do everything and burn themselves to the ground. And they realize, oh, interesting. Although these guys grind their faces off and they're on the hustle culture side, they don't tell us that's how we have to live our life. Interesting. So I think that's why we attract the audience that we attract. And now more than ever, we talk about relationships. We talk about wealth. We talk about love. We talk about health. We talk about all that stuff, self-awareness. So it's not just an achievers podcast. It's more somebody who's trying to become more aware and evolve. It's more of an evolution podcast than an achievers podcast.
Absolutely. Plus, you guys are two good-looking guys, so you can't.
Appreciate that. Well,
There's
likewise.
that part. I appreciate it. It's cool.
Yeah, of course. Got to give
But
it back.
you're right on and spot on. And I also believe it's that kind of, we go back to that feeling of being alone. There's a lot of women who feel alone in their own business, their own corporate setting, their open relationship, whatever it is. They have that more vulnerability because they're more in tune with their emotions than we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe you guys being vulnerable just opened up this new demographic. And ultimately, that's how I operate too. And I think that's why it does the same thing. Vulnerability is what leads to change. It leads to deeper relationships. Mm-hmm. Also, it leads to peace. Like, it is so fulfilling and so great to be very transparent and not hide a damn thing. Now, we always hide some things, but like from conversations, just like straight, this is what it is. Like it, don't like it, hate me, love me. It's who I am. At the end of the day, it's who I am. So we're good. As we wrap up this episode, I always ask this one thing. What is one thing you want to leave our listeners with that will help them take that next step in their journey?
I would say the biggest difference between the person that you are today and the person that you ultimately aspire to becoming is your habits. So don't worry about changing everything right now. Just work on changing one thing. And it doesn't have to be big. It could be tiny. If you start tracking your finances, that's a great awareness. Is it going to make you rich tomorrow? Most likely not. Is it going to make you wealthy tomorrow? Most likely not, unless you're already wealthy. And now you know you are. But it is creating an opportunity to build a new habit. And 5 years from today, you don't know how many little morsels of lessons and value you're going to find just by tracking your finances. Oh, I didn't realize I was still paying for Netflix. $16 a month. Let me can that. Or whatever it is, right? So that awareness is there. Work very diligently on just getting a little bit better and improving your habits a little bit. If anything, I'm a good example of that. I was not the smartest. I was not the best strategist. I was none of those things. I wasn't a great speaker, any of that. I just try to get a little bit better every day, just a little bit. Sometimes it's irrecognizable. But from day to day, progress seems invisible. From year to year, it's impossible to miss. So yeah, just focus on the habits. Focus on the fundamentals. Sometimes growth isn't sexy, and sometimes the best thing for your growth is the least sexy thing. So don't be afraid to lean into that.
You heard it from Kevin. What's next for next level? What's next for you guys? Is there a big project you're working on? Obviously, you're still grinding. But
yeah, surviving.
Surviving. Breathing maybe. What do you got coming down the pipe? Anything?
No, I don't think there's anything specific coming down. We are really leaning into what's becoming a charity. We have a foundation for children of single parents because Alan and I both experienced that growing up. So that's something we're putting more time, energy, effort, and focus into. But yeah, no, it's literally what I just said. Just try to get a little bit better. Take a lesson from this episode and this opportunity and figure out where did it go, where did it not, how do I improve it? And then 5 years from today, I'll be saying the same thing, but different.
But different, right? Ultimately. As always, we always ask, do all the like, share stuff. That doesn't matter. Comment, DM us, both Kevin and Alan, since he's been brought up a few times. Just reach out to us. We're here to help. We really want to help you as much as we can. And the only way we can do that is if you take that first step and just communicate. One way or another, we'll guide you on some path. So we appreciate you, Kevin. We're going to have all of your links and all that stuff as well.
Thank you.
But keep grinding.
The preceding program was sponsored by Black Mammoth. Any awards, rankings, or recognition by unaffiliated third parties or publications are in no way indicative of the advisor's future performance or any individual client's investment success. No award, ranking, or recognition should be construed as a current or past endorsement of Black Mammoth. Information regarding specific awards, rankings, or recognitions is available on the Black Mammoth website, www.blackmammoth.com. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. Investment strategies such as asset allocation, diversification, or rebalancing do not assure or guarantee better performance and cannot eliminate the risk of investment losses. There are no guarantees that a portfolio employing these or any other strategy will outperform a portfolio that does not engage in such strategies. This broadcast should not be construed by any client or prospective client as a solicitation to effect or attempt to effect transactions and securities or the rendering of personalized investment advice due to various factors including changing market conditions. The information discussed in this broadcast may no longer be reflective of current positions or recommendations. While information presented is believed to be factual and up-to-date, Black Mammoth do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. The tax and estate planning information discussed is general in nature and is provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal or tax advice. Listeners should consult an attorney or tax professional regarding their specific legal or tax situation. Past performance is not indicative of future results.